Hey everyone, Coach Chris here. Today I am going to discuss the Boston Marathon, but specifically registration for 2026. The 2025 race just occurred a little over a week ago, and I know a lot of people are anxious and excited to do this race maybe again or for the first time. And the whole process is a little bit complicated. There's definitely some nuance there. And so I'm just going to go through everything in great detail and explain how it works and also a history of how we got to where we are now. And then hopefully that clears things up for everybody out there who is new or not paying as close attention as I am. If you have additional questions at the end of this, please feel free to leave them in the chat at the comments at the bottom, or you are always welcome to send me an email and I will do my best to answer. Okay, let's get going. So where we are now, the 2025 race just occurred, as I said, about a week ago. The next thing we are waiting for, the BAA is going to make an announcement and they are going to explain what the dates are for registration for the 2026 race. I have here gathered all of the dates going back to 2017 when the BAA has made this announcement. So as you can see, in the beginning, it used to come out in May, and then more recently, in these last 2 years, actually 2023 and 2024, it did not come out until June. And specifically those dates there, that is Global Running Day. So I don't have, inside information from the BAA. I don't work for them and I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know exactly what they're going to do. They may make this announcement tomorrow. I don't expect that. That would be really surprising because the BAA likes to follow trends and history and sort of keep things the same. So if I were to bet, if I were to put money down, my bet would be on early June for this announcement. This announcement will be released as a full statement on the BAA website, so it'll be viewable on the homepage and then it'll get shuffled to the news section. If you follow the BAA on social media, I recommend you do because they will also release that information there. It's really helpful to keep in touch and track what the BAA is saying and go directly to the source. Oftentimes people will sort of speculate on things. I mean, listen, I'm speculating right now, right? But for the 100% factual, this is happening and when, you really want to go directly to the BAA website. So following them on social media can be helpful because that will enable you to know the minute the information is released and know for sure 100% confirmation this is what and when is happening. In the meantime, allow me to speculate. I have here a screenshot from the 2023 announcement. You will see that the registration began on Monday, September 11th at 10 a.m. Eastern, and it closed on Friday, September 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Registration then was from September 11th to September 15th. In 2024, very similar. It opened on Monday, September 9th at 10 a.m. Eastern, and it closed on Friday, September 13th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Registration then was September 9th through September 13th. A 5-day span, opening on Monday morning, 10 a.m., and closing at 5 p.m. Eastern, Boston time, business hours, right? In 2024. This has gone back other years and formed the same format of 5 days, Monday to Friday. We could sit here all day. I could have gone back many, many years, but suffice it to say, this is how things have gone since COVID happened. So let's look at the calendar. Again, we're going to give ourselves a couple of ideas of when it may happen for 2025. This is the 5-day span, Monday to Friday, September 11th to the 15th. And this is related to when Labor Day falls. So for those who may not live in the US, Labor Day is a national holiday, and it occurs on the first Monday in September. The first Monday in September moves around, but whatever that first Monday is, that is Labor Day. The BAA does not want to open registration on a national holiday. They want to be out at the barbecue with their family and friends. They want to be sitting on the beach, relaxing, right? They don't want to be fielding 800 emails from people saying, I can't log in. How do I register? What's going on? My computer's locked up, right? All of these things. They don't want to deal with that. They want to be in the office when the need arises to address these issues. So the very next Monday after Labor Day is when registration opens, and then it closes on Friday, 5-day span. This happened in September of 2024. This is the 5-day span, the 9th to the 13th, and Labor Day was on the 2nd. Here is the calendar for September 2025. Here is when Labor Day is on the 1st. I do not know for sure, not for 100% certainty, but I would put odds at 99% that registration will be September 8th to September 12th. 5-day span, opening at 10 Eastern and closing at 5 p.m. Eastern on that Friday. If you're a person and you are in the hunt for a BQ for 2026 and you haven't secured it yet, or you are someone who wants to increase your buffer to increase your odds for getting into the 2026 race, and you're looking for a race to make a last chance bid at this, I would be looking at races that occur on September 6th or September 7th, and nothing after that, because that would be after the registration window closes. You can obviously wait. You can wait to find out when the exact dates are and get the word directly from the BAA. They will be giving this announcement, but as I mentioned, odds are it's not going to be for at least a month still. So make your own choice there. These are the qualifying standards for the 2026 race. These are all new standards for everybody under 60 years of age. So the standards have just changed for anybody younger than 60 years old. The standards you want to use apply to your age on race day for the 2026 race. So that is April 20th. If you're a person who has a birthday in the beginning part of the year, you may be somebody who's aging up into a new category. That's really helpful because that can get you a bonus 5 minutes, 10 minutes even, depending upon which age group you're moving between. But I recommend really checking this out and making sure you know precisely what your standard is. The other thing I recommend is everybody apply no matter what your buffer is. If your standard is 320.00 and you ran a 320.00, I would put an application in. Some people might say, and I've heard people say, well, it's pointless, it's hopeless, I'm not going to make it, blah, blah, blah. My 2 cents on that are, let the BAA tell you that you didn't make it. Don't rule yourself out preemptively, because none of us know what is going to happen. We can guess and theorize and, hypothesize. I have guesses just like everybody, everybody on earth has a guess, but none of us really know until all of the applications are in and the BAA has reviewed things. I'm going to show how the BAA can make subtle adjustments and what subtle changes there are with the numbers. But just if you don't want to go into all the deep dive of the numbers, my recommendation, hot tip, if you've met the standard, apply. See what happens. This is a history going back several years outlining what significant changes were made. I'm not going to read this word for word. The overall takeaway here is there has been an evolution and a process of things changing, and that has gotten us to where we are today. So the standards have changed multiple times over the years. The standards changing is not a new phenomenon. This is not the first time this has occurred. This is a a thing that has been actually rapidly progressing. The last time that the standards changed was September 2019. That was for the 2020 race. And when that occurred, it was a 5-minute cut across the board for all age groups. So it wasn't that long ago. I think people are a little bit shocked at how rapidly things are evolving, but the overall point is things are evolving and they have been evolving. This race has been going on continuously for what next year will be year 130. So the BAA and demand has really been in constant flux, and there's a response and a give and a take. But ultimately, great demand has meant that not everybody who wants to run the race can get into the race. The field size is what is limiting the participants that all want to participate. This is what's limiting everybody from being able to. There is a limit to the capacity of the roads. There's a limit to what the BAA is willing to take on, and the towns along the route, what they're willing to put up with, frankly. But the BAA, has had a little bit of flexibility in this. Overall, the average has been 30,000. And from that 30,000, this is the total field. From that 30,000, 80% is allocated to time qualifiers. 20% of that pie is allocated to charity bibs, sponsor bibs, run influencers, the bosses, nieces, uncles, cousin, the people that write the checks, they get some bibs to do with as they please, which is their right and totally fair. But overwhelming majority of the bibs come from the time qualifier pool. I have here outlined year by year exactly how many people have been accepted only for that time qualifier field, because that is the topic that we are principally concerned with in this presentation. As you can see, overall, those numbers have shifted and changed up and down. The overall race field has also had a couple of shifts. So the April 2020 race was announced to have an expanded field of 31,500. This was announced at the close of registration in September of 2019. And of course, at that time, no one had any idea that there was going to be a global pandemic. But that race was obviously canceled. And then after that point, the field size was not enlarged until this year, April of 2025. This race was the largest race in a decade, more than a decade. And the field was 31,670. This, as I mentioned, was the largest race since 2014. And that was the reason that race 2014 was so large is because that was the year after the bombing. And the BAA invited back everybody that was affected, whose race was cut short, who was affected by the bombing, so on and so forth, right? So that is why that race was larger. The smallest time qualifier field occurred 2 years ago, September 2023, and you can see the number there, 22,019. I remember when this happened, we all sort of collectively held our breath because a lot of people thought, uh-oh, maybe this is the beginning of the tide turning. So it was a relief in many ways that there was a turnabout just this following year, September 2024, when the field was expanded. However, I do want to point out that a time qualifier field over 24,000 is certainly not the norm. It's only occurred on 3 occasions since 2014. So, I don't know how things are going to proceed ahead. I don't know if we are going to waffle back and forth, up and down, year to year. The BAA has the call on that ultimately, but I would certainly say that having 24,000 time qualifiers accepted is not the norm, and I wouldn't expect it It would be a pleasant surprise, but I wouldn't put money on that. We'll have to wait and see. All right. The reason that you've heard things like cut and buffer and cushion and BQ minus is because, as I mentioned, not everybody who meets the standard is given entry into the race. Everybody can apply if you meet the standard, but certain people will necessarily be cut. That's because there's an excess number of applicants versus the number of spots, and whoever is fastest under their standard are the people that are accepted. One misnomer or things that I see people comment on, sort of in an uneducated way, I would say, is, there's some notion that everybody who runs this race is a sub-3 runner, or, they can't be a 4-hour runner. And I just want to say there's standards that are 4:20 or 4:10. And if you run 10 minutes under your standard, or you run 20 minutes under your standard, you may be a 4-hour marathoner and a quite successful marathoner, able to gain entry into this race. That doesn't mean that you are cut. Sometimes people think of terms black and white, like fast or slow, and it's really a lot more relative. It's a little more nuanced than that, because the standards are determined by your age and gender. All right. There's a lot of information on this slide. We're going to spend a lot of time here because there's a couple of different things I want to explain. First, the standards changed in 2019 for the 2020 race. There was a 5-minute cut across the board for every age group. When that occurred, the BAA simultaneously announced that they were going to expand the capacity of the field for the first time. They accepted more time qualifiers that year than they had in many years prior. The reason for that is to keep the cut down. But I do want to note, even expanding the field, changing the standards for every age group, there was still a cut in that year, and that cut was 1 minute 39 seconds. Had the BAA not preemptively let thousands more in, that cut would have been well over 2 minutes. There was a change to the standards just this year. We will see how registration goes and what happens. But there's nothing to say that because the BAA has changed the standards, that means that there's no cut, or there can't be a cut, or the cut has to be small. Not always the case. In fact, not the case in recent past. I don't know what's going to happen. No one really does. But I would let go of that notion because there's no evidence for it. There's a couple of things going on here. One is that demand for the race is quite high. The running boom is here, right? You're not the only person doing your long run every Saturday. You're not the only person who's trying to maximize your recovery and optimize your nutrition. There's a lot of people doing this. A lot of them came out of the pandemic. A lot of people became serious during the pandemic, and we are seeing the fruits of that now. The other thing that is happening is, I don't have the data for this, but I've already read the numbers. The Boston Marathon is becoming more international than it once was. It is attracting a more global field than it had previously. It is still largely an American race, overwhelmingly American race. However, the applicant pool is coming from further and further afield. That means they can attract a higher quality and faster runner, right? So again, I don't know what forces are going to be at play. I don't know what economic, global, political circumstances we're going to be looking at come September. But if demand remains high, that doesn't spell good things for a small cut. Two years in a row, I have highlighted here, 2 years in a row, September 2023 and September 2024, there was a record number of applicants, and not a small record number of applicants, a large record number of applicants. 2023 saw 33,058 apply, and 2024 saw 36,393 apply. Again, these numbers are unheard of, and I have them all listed here, going back several years, more than a decade. So, pandemic aside, weirdness, pandemic, trend, ignore that time period. We are in some unprecedented times in terms of applicants and people meeting the standards and wanting to run this race. We will see what happens. I don't think anybody wants a global pandemic to occur just so they can run the Boston Marathon, but it may take something on that level, seismic, to really see demand drop down to the point that the BAA can accept all time qualifiers. Remember, with an expanded field, including all of the different entry methods, charity, sponsor, etc., the field for this year was 31,600. The last 2 years have had time qualifier only applicants over that by several thousand. Okay? There is almost no way that the Boston Marathon is going to be able to accept 35,000 or 32,000 or even 30,000 time qualifiers only, because the field is not only time qualifiers, right? That 80-20 split. So again, I don't know. I'm just saying what the numbers are. We can look back and see where things have been and how things have been falling, the number that have been cut, the number that have been applying, all of these things. One huge question will be how large the field is going forward, if it remains at that expanded capacity, if it remains an acceptance rate of 24,000 for time qualifiers, we don't know. All right, another thing I like to point out, because I just see this and I just have to respond to it. But I've seen comments from people that say, well, it's the non-binary category. This is the reason that things are the way they are. And I'm showing the exact numbers for how many have applied for this and gotten in via this category. It is fewer than 100. And it has only existed for 3 prior Boston Marathons. Let's go back. Look at all these years with the cut, right? All of these years with the cut, year after year after year after year, and there was no non-binary category in existence. It wasn't even in anybody's mind in 2011 or 2013, right? There were no races with that. However, there was still a cut then. So if you're going to put blame on something, at least have some numbers and some information to back it up. That's all I'm saying. There may come a point, I cannot predict the future, maybe 15 years down the road, this is a substantial number. This is a number that is moving the needle in some way. But at 69, which occurred this year with its highest peak, its max so far, that ain't it. So I don't know. I'm just saying. In terms of other raw numbers and categories, those who have met a 10-year streak, that's actually a much larger pool of people. And that is a category that has been growing year over year over year over year. And I show that here. There's a couple of years where I don't have stats. And actually, this program goes back all the way to 2012. And unfortunately, I don't have numbers for all of that, but I have the numbers for the years that I know. And you can see, so in 2018, it was 424. And then most recently this year, it was 709. So what is this program exactly? As I said, it was established in September of 2012. And this is a program for people who have run 10 or more Boston marathons in a row. It has to be consecutive. You can't skip, miss any. If you do this, you are granted entry provided you run the time standard for your age and gender. You are not subject to a cut in this case. How does this work? This is a screenshot from September of 2023, but the same thing applies. These people are registering before regular registration opens. If you've met the standard exactly, if it's 3:20:00 and you run a 3:20:00 and you have run 10 or more Boston marathons, you are guaranteed to get in. You are in. You apply, your time is verified for the BAA, and you have your spot before registration even opens for everybody else. This number then is removed from the total time qualifier allocation. I should give a little personal note and say I am in pursuit of this myself. 2026 will be 8 in a row for me, and I am guaranteed to get in with the buffer that I have. I intend to take full advantage of this. So I'm personally in favor of it because it benefits me. But I do caveat that to say that there may come a point where this program needs to be reevaluated because, again, there may be a time where these numbers are so overwhelmingly detracting from the time qualifier allocation that this might need to be addressed and adjusted. But I think that's many years in the future, if at all. In the meantime, I will have it. All right, let's look at another category. This is the Quarter Century Club. This was created in September of 2001. And these folks have run 25 Boston marathons in a row, no skips. And if you do that, you are guaranteed entry provided you finish the Boston Marathon within the time limit of the race. You have to then record an official finish. So for this year, you have to have finished the race by 5:30 p.m. If you finished the race this year at 5:31, you are not counted as an official finisher. You would not be granted another year on your streak for this Quarter Century Club. But provided you do that and you continually do that, you are not subject to meeting the standards. Doesn't matter what your age and gender says, you don't have to do it anymore. And there's no cut for you whatsoever. You just have to continue to start the Boston Marathon and finish the Boston Marathon within the time limit, and you can run the Boston Marathon for forever until you don't want to anymore. So I have this screenshot. This is from an article that came out just about 2 weeks ago, so right before this year's race. And I have been keeping track of this, although the numbers for this are sort of informal. They are not officially reported by the BAA themselves, but these numbers do come from the Quarter Century Club that they keep track on their own and do have a president and recording secretary and all of those kinds of things. But the numbers are 119 active members as of this year. And then they estimated a potential 19 athletes would be added at the conclusion of this year's race. As I said, I've been keeping track of these numbers sort of informally, and I do notice that this number does not change much for the most part because people come in and they come out, people retire, or people have an injury and they're unable to finish the race, or they're unable to start the race. People start the race and they can't get through it because they have an injury. And even though they're walking, they can't finish in the allotted time limit, right? So a lot of things happen from this pool of people. And it's such that it's a very sort of stable number overall. So this is in contrast to the 10-year streak program, which has just been growing and growing year over year over year. This number remains relatively steady. All right, that is all I have to say. I think I've covered everything in pretty good detail. If you have additional questions, please feel free to ask, and I'm happy to answer. Other than that, I hope everybody has a great rest of your summer. If you're looking for a BQ or a faster time, I hope that works out for you. And I would say I hope that everybody gets in. I do hope that everybody gets in. I just don't think that's realistic. But um, please go do your best and enjoy running. And I'll see you next year in Boston. Bye, guys.